And that's our inside look at Mercury Sports' winning combination. People working in various locations using different award-winning windows products from Lotus to beat the competition. That's truly working together. That's Lotus.
But the 540i also has BMW's interlocking door anchoring system. As I said, Mercedes builds a fine car, and we offer a number of advantages. But the best way to experience the BMW difference is to drive one. I've got a car parked right outside.
Well, I appreciate the offer, but frankly, nothing I've seen here would change my mind. In fact, the Mercedes dealer made the same sort of comparison to the BMW. Good morning, and welcome to the second edition of Retail Report, our bi-monthly news program. I'm your host, Buzz Luttrell. The idea behind Retail Report is to use our growing satellite TV network to keep you informed on a regular basis of important developments within the retail sector. In this video, we'll review key optical fiber handling techniques for splicing in the field, including stripping, cleaning, cleaving, and splice protection. We'll also answer some common questions about fiber flaws, strength, and compatibility as they relate to fiber handling. First, let's take a closer look at an optical fiber. Hello, and welcome to the Digital Video Network. I'm Buzz Luttrell, your host for this telecast on Digital's PC LAN Server 3100 Sales Readiness Program. Now, today, you'll learn a lot about the PC LAN Server 3100, what its features are, how easy it is to install, how best to sell it, and to whom, of course, as well as what programs Digital has in place to help you market and sell it. From the backwoods of Mississippi to the streets of Milwaukee, where she almost became a juvenile delinquent. In fact, some would say you did, Oprah Winfrey.
But you know what is interesting, Buzz? People say grow to that point and not, let your past determine what
I've got to challenge you on this point, because I have read that you said that had you not gone to your father after you nearly became a juvenile delinquent in Milwaukee with your mother, you might never have arrived because your father and his discipline straightened you out.
Yeah, that is all very true.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
You got a big break there.
And
We'll come back to your early experiences in life and what made you who you are today, but speaking of being criminal, I think probably Phil Donahue would consider you to be at least a thief.
Roll Phil!
You come into Chicago in 1984, take over AM Chicago within 6 weeks. You're beating him in the ratings. You have a half-hour show. First half of his show, they expand it to an hour. You kick him steadfastly in the rear end, and he leaves town. Now, I have heard that you humbly say, that wasn't because of you.
And that is the truth. See, I believe in the truth. I did not send Phil to New York. Marlo did. I did not.
You have made your mark, at least in part, by asking more than candid questions. Sally Field, sitting next to you, and you say, does Burt Reynolds wear his toupee? Does he go to bed with his toupee on or off?
Yeah.
You ask her that?
Yes, I did, and I must say that,
Now, I saw the movie Color Purple, and you were, statuesque, is that the right word? No, I know.
No, it's not.
But this...
No, it's not the right word.
I know, and the world knows by now that you say you have a weight problem, Oprah.
Of course, I'm not even sensitive about it.
Before, I know we got a videotape we want to show, but I got to follow this up because our audience ought to know that...
What?
When you were in Jay-Z, on Jay-Z TV in Baltimore, you weighed 148 pounds.
Yeah, how'd you know?
When you won the title Miss Black Tennessee, you weighed 135 pounds.
How'd you know that?
I know. If you had been at that weight, you might not have gotten the part.
Well, I know. You see, I say this to people all the time, that God works in our lives and gives us cues and clues as to what we're supposed to do in our lives. And I know,
A rare chance to talk with a former president, I understand, so I'm going to try and keep my questions very brief today, maybe 5, 6 basic questions. I'll go to you, the viewers, and to our studio audience, because I am sure that a lot of you have questions you yourself would like to ask the president. Right off the top, the thing that would, I guess, intrigue me, you spent 4 pretty tough years in the White House. What are the 2 most important lessons you learned while you were there?
Well, I learned the tremendous power and influence of our nation on earth, which is almost inconceivable with our great strength in the military, politics, and also economics. That's the first thing I learned. And the second thing was that we should use this tremendous influence of power for peace and for the resolution of regional conflicts through diplomacy and through negotiation rather than the exercise of military and the shedding of blood.
Sounds to me like you're saying that you realize the United States is even much significantly more powerful than you realized as a governor, as a politician coming into the White House?
Yes, I never dreamed when I first went there that we could be so influential, say, in the field of human rights, not only in our country, but throughout Latin America and throughout Asia and even in the Soviet Union. Okay.
I've got to acknowledge that poring over your book Saturday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday evening, I realized how hard you worked. You must have worked to get on top of the issues, the challenges facing this country when you were president. Does it bother you now that President Reagan, who seems to work probably less than any president that I could recall, reportedly, is so much admired and he doesn't go through that?
Well, President Reagan, you know, I'm not sure that I want him to work any harder on some of the subjects.
Two different perspectives to begin this show on the subject of herpes and whether or not you can sue someone for giving it to you. We're talking with two women. We'll be talking with two women, but of course it could have gone the other way. We could have two men in here complaining about women giving it to them. And it's interesting to note, and maybe you two are as amazed by this as I am. 2 years ago, I was a news reporter 2 years ago. You couldn't turn on the TV. You couldn't pick up a paper without reading about herpes. Today, almost nothing because of the panic over AIDS. Is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, I personally think it's a bad thing. I mean, we need to be more aware of herpes, of syphilis, of gonorrhea. It happens.
Whatever it is, it's forever as far as we know now. There is no cure. Bonnie, you are suing your former lover. Let's set this up.
Okay. Just to
Back
clarify, my involvement with this man was about 2 months long before we ever became involved sexually.
We said in our promo for this
Right.
show that you had a brief encounter. To you, that sounded like it could have been a one-nighter. You want to make sure
Right.
that was not the case.
That's correct.
And it wasn't a sexual relationship up until...
This particular one night.
Yeah.
And this was something that he knew from the onset.
While we're on the subject of automobiles, it could be a long night in Toronto tonight as negotiators for the Canadian United Auto Workers Union and General Motors try to work toward a contract settlement. The 4-day-old strike by GM's 36,000 Canadian workers has already had an impact on the automaker's plants in the U.S. So far, more than 11,000 U.S. workers at 3 Detroit area plants and 1 Ohio factory have been laid off. Those facilities include the Cadillac assembly plant in Detroit and the Orion Township factory. Reports from Toronto indicate no sign of a contract agreement appears to be in sight. Auto industry analyst Arvid Jopi told Channel 7 News if the Canadian strike drags on, GM could really be in trouble.
If it goes another week, it's going to get very serious. That probably, if the way we have it figured out here, that in another month, if it lasts a month, then you would shut down General Motors, in my view.
Jopi also says if the walkout continues, it will be the Japanese, not the Canadian auto workers, who will be the real winners. Mike?
Too shabby. Thanks, Jim.
Okay. You know, Mike, I told Jim if he could just guarantee us weather for the rest of the fall like we had about noontime today, he could make a fortune. This guy just doesn't have a good sense of business. Well, baseball season is officially over now, of course, but as you might imagine, the World Series Detroit Tigers are more popular than ever. There's evidence of that today in Southfield, where a baseball card show opened at the Lawrence Institute of Technology. Hundreds of fans lined up an hour and a half before the show opened, hoping to get a chance to get autographs of several Tigers who were on hand, including Dave Rozema and Rusty Kuntz. The extravaganza continues tomorrow, and among the Tigers signing autographs will be Dave Bergman, Marty Castile, and Barbero Garbey, and probably my young son Greg will be there.
He'll
Mike?
be there too, huh?
I'm sure.
Okay. On that note, we will call it a night. Thank you very much for joining us. ABC Weekend Report is next. Buzz?
Have a very good night. Take care.